Star Trek as a franchise enjoyed continuous airtime between 1987 with the airing of Encounter at Farpoint, the pilot episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, and 2005 with the release of the final episode of Star Trek Enterprise, These Are the Voyages. During that time, no less than 4 shows and the same number of films would be made, greatly expanding the number of worlds, characters, ships, and phenomena within the world of Star Trek. And also, for the good of this channel, a huge number of new ships would be shown. I don't know if I mentioned that, but that's kind of near and dear to my heart. After the conclusion of Enterprise, we would see something of a drought of new Star Trek content, with a trio of alternate universe movies released between 2009 and 2016 being the only Trek content of note for well over a decade. Or almost a decade, because I can't do math. And these films are generally not well regarded among Star Trek fans, though they do have some ships of note, and I like ships. Finally, though, with the airing of the much maligned Star Trek Discovery in 2017, we have seemingly entered a new era of Trek on the television, with 5 new series being aired and running more or less concurrently with one another, building on Discovery and improving on its somewhat shaky foundation. And while these new shows have generally had mixed reception among Trek fans, both deserved and otherwise, they have in the last 7 or so years seen a huge and diverse number of new starships created and shown. And, as this channel focuses on starships, this is what we're going to focus on in this video. I may have mentioned it a time or two. I'm going to show 5 ships from the new era of Star Trek, which I personally like. Ships will be taken from the JJ-verse films. I don't know if one of those actually made it on this list, though. I was tempted to include Kelvin, but I didn't. Star Trek Discovery, Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, Picard, and Prodigy. Feel free to list some of your favorite NuTrek ships in the comments, but let's try to steer clear of commentary about the shows themselves and keep things limited to the ships from the shows, because that's a whole other debate. The first ship on our list is the Farragut, a light cruiser or destroyer-sized vessel which appeared in the Strange New Worlds episode A Quality of Mercy. The ship has been seen several times afterwards in various background shots, or at least a member of her class has. And I really like this design. It's reminiscent of the later very successful Miranda class, but also has unique elements. Namely, inward-sloping nacelle pylons, which really add something to this design. If they had swooped outwards, it would have looked dumb in my opinion. If they had swooped down, it would have looked normal. But as it is, it looks really cool. The ship also has a small secondary hull and deflector dish integrated into the saucer, which gives the ship a familiar yet distinct look, and makes it not just another kitbash clone of the Enterprise. The ship is also a favorite of mine, as it takes something from existing canon, that being the name of the first ship Kirk served on mentioned in the original series, and builds upon it by making an entirely new class, not just another Constitution-class starship for this ship to belong to. Many sourcebooks had stated the Farragut prior was a Constitution, but that seemed a bit boring to me and really didn't expand the universe the way that a bespoke design does. Next up we have the Shepard class, a light cruiser or frigate design which appears throughout Star Trek Discovery, and has even made appearances in Strange New Worlds. The design is based on rejected concepts for the Walker class, of which USS Shenzhou was a member. I like this design. It's very much a Discovery-style ship, but it looks the most like a classic Trek ship. But more importantly, it looks very much like the non-canon Lochnar-class frigate, which is among my favorite Starfleet ship designs ever. It's also really the only Discovery design which I genuinely like, so it kind of had to appear here in some capacity. So I adore Lower Decks. It's a generally well-written, good-looking show which is full of nice references, callbacks, and mentions of well-established Trek lore and knowledge. The setting of the show, focusing on the less glamorous side of Starfleet, is also cool and original. And that love extends to the awkward-looking hero ship of the series, the USS Cerritos, which is a California-class starship. Unlike other ships we've seen prior, the California is meant to support the day-to-day operations of the Federation by performing duties which line ships are ill-suited to. The class acts as engineering, surveyors, and colonial support vessels. pretty much any mission for which a more typical frigate, destroyer, or cruiser was never built to perform and would be something of overkill for the role. And this is a really cool idea. It goes a long way to flesh out and fill up the world of Star Trek by showing us how things work behind the scenes, while still holding to the idea that the world of Star Trek is a positive future, just one which does still need janitors and a lot of work in the background to make the whole apparatus function smoothly. And yeah, the ship does look kind of gangly and awkward, but Cerritos doesn't need to look glamorous in order to do her job. So that doesn't really play a role in my list at all. She looks like she has a job to do, and by golly, she's gonna do it. The next ship on the list is a bit of a cheat, as it's not strictly a NuTrek era ship, but rather comes from a book series from the early 2000s, which I quite like. The Luna class was developed to serve as the class of which Riker's first ship, the USS Titan, belonged to, and the design which was chosen came from a fan design contest with many submissions, which is just a really cool way to make a Star Trek ship. The vessel was popular with fans, but was strictly non-canon until its first official appearance in Lower Decks, where we see the USS Titan come to the aid of the Cerritos in a battle against Pac-led forces. The ship has since appeared in Lower Decks afterwards, and in Star Trek Picard, which makes me very, very, very happy. It's a really solid little design, and I am so glad the ship is now officially canon. And finally for this list, we have the experimental USS Protostar, the hero ship in Star Trek Prodigy. Probably the NuTrek series which gets the least attention, understandable given its lower age target demographic, but the fact that it's from a kids show aside, the Protostar is still a really cool and unique design. And it's actually really grown on me. It just looks like sharp and fast. If you've seen the show, that's kind of the whole point of the ship, that, you know, it's like Sonic. It goes fast. I don't know if it has a fondness for chili dogs, but hey, with Star Trek AI, all things are possible. The ship has ample nacelles, as Scotty would say, and that just sells it in my mind that it's really fast. I mean, it had a mission. It's like the Cerritos, but the opposite end. They both look like they have a job to do, and they're gonna do it. And there is my list of some of the more modern Starfleet ships that I really like. Let me know what you think of my choices and what NuTrek ship classes you like. Actually, just let me know what your 5 favorite Star Trek ships of all time are. If you include the Springfield, I'm gonna have serious doubts. And worry for your, sanity, because that's an ugly one. But pretty much all other entries are open. Oh, Jaeger, too. Jaeger is another awful one. Anyway, yeah. Do that in the comments. I'm not too judgy, I promise. Unless you like those two. They're pet peeves of mine. They're abominations. But regardless of your divergent tastes, I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice day.